You are the master of your fate. Let's begin. I want to talk to you about a lie you've been telling yourself. A comfortable lie that promises peace but delivers only regret. I call it the later trap. I see this trap everywhere today in your endless scrolls, in your half-finished notebooks, in the silent whisper of tomorrow that has become a disease of the modern spirit. I will show you what this procrastination truly costs you, how it hides behind good intentions, and before we end, I will give you the single powerful action that finally breaks the loop. You feel it, don't you? That heavy feeling in the pit of your stomach. The subtle anxiety that hums just beneath the surface of your day. That is the cost of every unfinished task, every postponed phone call, every forgotten promise to yourself. It's the emotional debt you carry, and it grows with every passing hour. It's a weight, and it is entirely of your own making. I've seen men build empires and lose them not because they lacked vision, but because they couldn't bring themselves to start what they saw. A plan left on paper is a monument to what could have been, a ghost of a great idea that was never given life. I knew a man who spent 5 years meticulously planning a business. He had blueprints, spreadsheets, and a dozen notebooks filled with strategy. The plans were flawless. The execution was zero. He became a man defined by what he was about to do, not by what he had done. Every day he carried the burden of that unstarted project. He was crushed by the sheer weight of its potential. This is what later does to you. It does not just delay a task, it steals your peace of mind. Every time you say, "I'll get to it later," you are not freeing yourself. You are enslaving yourself to the future. You are allowing that task to occupy space in your thoughts, to nag at you from the sidelines, to siphon away your energy. It's like a car with a parking brake on. You're trying to move forward, but something is holding you back, and you can't quite put your finger on why you feel so exhausted. The great minds I knew understood this. They knew that the mental and emotional toll of inaction was far greater than the effort required to simply begin. They saw that the anxiety of a single unsent email was more draining than the 2 minutes it took to write it. They had a principle: clear the decks, unload the burden. Don't let the small things become big things in your mind. Because when you do, they become a permanent drag on your spirit, holding you hostage to a version of yourself that is always planning, but never doing. Your freedom lies not in the luxury of postponement, but in the power of immediate action. I'll do it later. It sounds so harmless, doesn't it? It feels like a kindness you're giving yourself, a brief vacation from your responsibilities. But later is a ghost. It never arrives. It is a destination that constantly moves just beyond your reach. The human mind is a master of illusion. It convinces you that there is a better time, a better mood, a better moment. This is a mirage. The only moment that ever truly exists is this one. When you postpone a task, your brain is engaging in a subtle but dangerous act of self-deception. It provides you with a fleeting sense of relief, the temporary comfort of not having to face a challenge right now. This is a short-term pleasure, a chemical reward for avoiding discomfort. But what does it cost you? It costs you your peace. It costs you your momentum. It costs you the forward progress that is the lifeblood of all success. I have seen countless men and women with great plans and noble intentions fall victim to this lie. They had the talent, the resources, and the vision, but they lacked the discipline to deny themselves the fleeting comfort of later. They would say to me, "I'm just waiting for the right moment, or I'll be more motivated tomorrow." But tomorrow has its own set of challenges, its own set of distractions, and the task that felt difficult today will feel even heavier when it's still waiting for you tomorrow, now compounded by the guilt and the anxiety of the delay. The opportunity you had today is now a debt you owe tomorrow, and your future self is not a banker who gives out free loans. Think of it this way: your mind has a finite amount of energy each day. When you put off a task, you're not saving that energy, you're simply redirecting it. You're spending it on the nagging internal dialogue, the stress of a looming deadline, the subconscious fear of failure. You're paying a toll without ever starting the journey. I want you to stop lying to yourself. Stop believing in the promise of a mythical, better tomorrow. The power to act rests only in the now. And to master your future, you must first master this one single moment. I once spoke to a man who had more brilliant ideas for businesses than anyone I had ever met. He had plans for a dozen different inventions, each more groundbreaking than the last. He could describe in vivid detail the products, the marketing, the eventual triumph. But he also had a story for every reason he hadn't started. He was waiting for more capital. He was waiting for the right partner. He was waiting for the perfect market conditions. He was a master of inaction, and his excuses were more polished than his actual work. I saw the weight on his shoulders, the burden of a brilliant mind trapped by a crippling habit of delay. He had a rich inner world of possibility, but it never translated to a single outward result. He was building castles in the sky, but he was afraid to lay a single brick on the ground. I sat with him one day and I told him this. A man who waits for a perfect time will find himself in a perfect graveyard of his own dreams. The graveyard is full of men and women who are just waiting, waiting for permission, waiting for clarity, waiting for a sign. This man had become a storyteller, not a builder. His greatest creation was his excuse, and the more he told the story of why he couldn't start, the more real that story became. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy of paralysis. He had become a victim of his own narrative. His potential was not limited by his talent or his resources, but by his belief that he could only begin when all conditions were perfect. He was so busy preparing for the race that he never made it to the starting line. I want you to learn from his mistake. He saw the mountain in its entirety and felt overwhelmed by its scale. He never considered that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. He forgot that the first step is the most important one, not because of its size, but because it breaks the spell of later. That man never built his empire. He never became the man he described. He remained a brilliant dreamer, and his dreams eventually became his heaviest chains. I don't want that to be your story. I want you to be a person of action, not a master of excuse. I believe that at the heart of all procrastination is a simple, primal fear. It's not a fear of failure, though that plays a part. It is the fear of the first step. The first step is the one that makes your dream real. It's the one that moves the idea from the safe, comfortable world of your mind into the messy, uncertain world of action. And the truth is, the first step always feels too big. It feels monumental. The gap between where you are right now and where you need to be seems like a chasm you cannot cross. This is where the trap is set. Your mind looks at a mountain and tells you to wait for a better climbing crew, for a warmer day, for a stronger pair of boots. But the mountain doesn't care about your preparations. It is simply there, waiting to be climbed. The biggest mistake you can make is to look at the entire journey at once. The human mind is a remarkable instrument, but it is easily overwhelmed by the sheer scale of a great ambition. It sees the thousands of hours, the hundreds of challenges, the countless moments of doubt and struggle, and it tells you, we can't do this, not right now. So you wait. You procrastinate. You stay safe in the planning phase, because there you cannot fail. I saw this fear in so many men. They were afraid to send the first letter, to make the first phone call, to lay the first stone of their foundation. They were so focused on the full vision of the skyscraper that they were paralyzed by the thought of digging the first hole. They did not understand a fundamental truth. The first step is not meant to take you to the finish line. The first step is only meant to get you off the starting line. It is a moment of pure decision. It is the act of declaring to yourself and to the world that you are no longer a planner, but a doer. The fear of the first step is the fear of commitment. It is the fear of leaving the comfortable shores of your dreams and sailing into the open sea of action. But I promise you this, that first step, no matter how small, has a power that you cannot comprehend until you take it. It is the key that unlocks all the momentum that follows. The key to ending your procrastination is not to make the journey shorter, but to make the first step so small it cannot possibly fail. And when you do that, the mountain no longer seems so impossibly high. There is a simple, powerful truth I learned long ago from the great men of my day. The most difficult step is always the first one. So, what if you made the first step so small it couldn't possibly fail? What if you took all the monumental weight of your procrastination and reduced it to something so light, so simple, so absurdly easy that your mind couldn't even put up a fight? Here is your answer. I call it the 2-minute rule. If a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, you must do it immediately, not later. Now, think about the tasks that have been nagging at you all day. The email that needs a 2-line reply, the single dish in the sink, putting your coat away instead of throwing it on a chair, making the bed in the morning. These are not big tasks. They are not grand ambitions. They are small, tiny actions that, if left undone, become the emotional ballast that weighs you down. They are the little splinters in your mind that keep you from achieving true peace and focus. This rule is not about doing everything at once. It's not about checking off a massive to-do list. This rule is a surgical strike on your procrastination habit. It's designed to bypass the part of your brain that says, "This is too much work." The human mind is a negotiator. It loves to make deals with itself. It will say, "I'll do the dishes later," and you, your conscious self, will agree. The 2-minute rule is your tool to end that negotiation. You are simply removing the option of later for anything that can be done instantly. I want you to try this right now. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until the next section. As you read this, think of one small nagging task that would take you less than 2 minutes to complete. Maybe it's a text message you've been putting off sending. Maybe it's a receipt you need to file. Whatever it is, I want you to stop and do it right now. See, it's already done. The feeling of that tiny victory, that small sense of accomplishment, is a far greater reward than the temporary relief of putting it off. This is the first step toward a new way of living. This is how you begin to reclaim your time. This isn't just about a rule for tiny tasks. It's about a revolutionary way of thinking. This is about retraining your brain. It's about teaching your mind that you are a person of action, not a person of delay. Every time you act on the 2-minute rule, you are casting a vote for a new identity, the identity of a person who starts, who follows through, who does not negotiate with their own destiny. Think about the emails you've been putting off, the single dish in the sink, the phone call you're dreading. Do they take 2 minutes? Then do them. Now. Don't think, just act. This is the moment you put an end to the LaterTrap. This is where you declare that procrastination no longer has power over you. Every small victory builds your mental strength. It creates a new neural pathway. Your brain begins to associate action with reward, not with discomfort. I want you to think about how this small habit changes everything. You stop living with a mental backlog of things to do. Your mind becomes a clear, focused instrument, not a cluttered storage closet of unfinished business. The 2-minute rule clears the decks of your life. It gives you the space and the clarity to focus on the big things, the important things, the things that truly matter. You are no longer spending your energy on the small, nagging tasks that were once holding you hostage. This is a quiet, powerful discipline. It is the practice of self-respect. It is the act of honoring your own time. When you apply this rule, you are no longer a victim of your own habits. You are the master of them. You are no longer the person who delays. You are the person who acts. And in that simple shift, you will find a freedom you have never known before. I remember watching Andrew Carnegie closely. He was a man who understood the power of clearing his mental and physical space. He received stacks of correspondence every single day, mountains of paper and requests that would have overwhelmed a lesser man. Most men would let it pile up, creating a fortress of dread on their desk. They would tell themselves they'd get to it later, a little bit each day, but later always finds a way to become never. Carnegie operated differently. He would open each letter, and if a reply could be written in under 2 minutes, he would write it immediately. Not just a scribble, but a clear, direct 2-line response that handled the matter then and there. The rest of the correspondence, the longer, more complex issues, he would delegate to the right person on his team. He never let the small things become big things in his mind. He never allowed the mental clutter of unfinished business to accumulate. This wasn't just a system, it was a habit of mastery. It was a philosophy of action that cleared the way for his most important work. By handling the minor tasks the moment they arrived, he freed his mind from the nagging anxiety of an ever-growing to-do list. He created a clean slate for himself every day. He didn't have to carry the mental weight of a dozen small tasks when he needed to focus his full power on the single monumental decision. He taught me that the man who succeeds is not the one who works the hardest, but the one who works the smartest, the one who has the most energy to apply to the most important problems. And that energy is easily siphoned away by the small, insignificant tasks you keep putting off. The 2-minute rule is not just about doing chores. It's about protecting your greatest resource, your mental clarity, and your focus. It's about building a fortress around your mind so that you can dedicate your full power to building your empire. This is not just a trick. It is a philosophy. Every time you act on the 2-minute rule, you are casting a vote for a new identity. The identity of a person who starts, who follows through, who does not negotiate with their own destiny. You see, your actions are a reflection of who you believe you are. If you consistently delay, you are confirming a subconscious belief that you are a person who procrastinates, a person who is not in control of their own time or their own life. You are literally training yourself to be a person of inaction. But when you commit to this simple rule, you begin to rewrite the script. You are telling yourself a new story, a story in which you are the hero who takes action, a story where you are the master of your moments, not the slave of your moods. This shift in identity is far more powerful than any productivity trick. It's the psychological foundation upon which all success is built. The most successful people I have ever known were not superhuman. They were simply people who had developed an unshakable belief in their ability to act. They had cultivated a deep-seated inner confidence that they could get things done. You are building that confidence, one tiny 2-minute action at a time. This is not about being perfect. You will still have moments of doubt and hesitation. But when you feel the pull of procrastination, you now have a tool to fight back. A simple, undeniable action that proves to yourself that you are not a person who delays. You are a person who acts. This is the difference between a life of possibility and a life of potential. The person who acts is the one who transforms their potential into reality. I want you to become that person. But what about the big tasks? The projects that take weeks, months, or years? You might be sitting there thinking, this 2-minute trick is fine for emails, but what about my great work? What about writing that book, or building that business, or getting into the best shape of my life? This is a critical question, and the answer is where the true power of this philosophy lies. The 2-minute rule is for them too. A 2-minute task is not the entire project. A 2-minute task is simply putting on your running shoes. A 2-minute task is opening a new document and writing the title of your book. A 2-minute task is finding the phone number of the person you need to call to start your business. The purpose of the 2-minute rule is not to finish the project, but to start it. The biggest lie your mind tells you is that a great task requires a great leap. It does not. A great task requires 1,000 tiny, deliberate steps. And the first of those steps is the most important of all. It is the one that proves to you that the chasm between where you are and where you want to be is not a chasm at all. It is simply a series of small, manageable steps. I have seen men build empires from nothing, and not one of them did it in a single monumental action. They did it by conquering one day at a time, one decision at a time, one action at a time. They mastered the small things first. They proved to themselves that they were people who could be counted on, even by themselves. They took on the impossible by making the first step so small it couldn't fail. They didn't focus on climbing the whole mountain. They focused only on the first 2 feet. And that first 2 feet, that first small action, is what gives you the confidence and the momentum to take the next one, and the next. This is how you defeat the impossible. What happens when you put on your running shoes? You start to run. What happens when you open that new document and write the title of your project? The first paragraph follows. The first step is the one that builds the bridge from inaction to momentum. And momentum is the single greatest ally you can have in the pursuit of any goal. Momentum is a force of nature. It's what allows a tiny snowball to become an avalanche. It's what turns a small fire into a raging inferno. And it is the direct result of a tiny, deliberate act. When you apply the 2-minute rule, you are not just getting a task done. You are initiating a psychological snowball effect. That small victory, that feeling of completion and progress, releases a powerful wave of dopamine in your brain. It feels good, and your brain, being a seeker of pleasure, will want more of that feeling. It will naturally guide you toward the next step and the next. I have seen this small discipline turn a man who was lost in procrastination into a man who was unstoppable. He started by simply cleaning his desk for 2 minutes every morning. From that simple act, he began to feel a sense of control. Soon, he was tackling a single email he'd been putting off. Then he was making a phone call. And then, without even realizing it, he was sitting down to work on the big project he had been dreading for months. The 2-minute rule had given him the momentum he needed to conquer his biggest fears. You don't need to force yourself to work for hours on end. You just need to force yourself to begin. The rest, my friend, is handled by momentum. You just have to prove to yourself that you are capable of taking a single intentional step. The universe rewards action. It doesn't reward perfect planning or noble intentions. It rewards the person who has the courage to start. So let momentum be your engine. Let a single tiny act of courage be your first spark. You do not get to live yesterday again. You cannot borrow time from tomorrow. You have this moment, this second, and in it lies all the power you need. Stop waiting for later. Later is not coming. It is a ghost, a promise that keeps you a slave to your own inaction. The only way to win is to begin. The future belongs to the person who acts today, not the one who plans for tomorrow. The great men of my day were not great because they had more time. They were great because they used the time they had. They understood that the distance between a dream and a reality is measured not in years, but in actions. Be a master of this moment. Take that single tiny step. Prove to yourself that you are a person of action, and you will become the master of your life. There is no other path to success. The time to begin is now. Key takeaways and action steps. 1. The later trap. Understand that later is a psychological illusion that gives short-term relief in exchange for long-term regret and anxiety. Its true cost is missed opportunities and a lack of peace. It is not a place you are going to, but a trap you are currently in. 2. The one action, implement the 2-minute rule. If a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, you must do it immediately, without hesitation or negotiation. This is your master key. 3. Build a new identity. Every time you apply the rule, you are reinforcing a new self-image as a person of action. You are telling yourself a new story, one where you are the master of your moments and the executor of your plans. 4. The domino effect. Use the 2-minute rule to initiate larger, more overwhelming tasks. The goal is to simply start, to get the ball rolling. A 2-minute action on a big project is enough to build the momentum that will carry you forward. 5. Your assignment. Right now, as you finish watching this, look around you. Find one task that you've been putting off that will take 2 minutes or less. Do it. Then, tomorrow, repeat the process. I want you to become addicted to action, to the feeling of momentum, and to the power of a life lived without the burden of later. Remember, your success begins the moment you decide to act.